Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to another episode of RILN Opinion Plus. This is a space for our opinions where we talk about current events and questions the Latino community is curious about. Today, we are joined by Mayor Maria Rivera of Central Falls, Rhode Island. Welcome, Mayor Rivera. Thank you for joining us this week.
Thank you, Brian. It's my honor to be here with you today.
Absolutely. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. The weather's getting better. COVID is dying down a little bit, so I'm finally trying to figure out how I can have time to breathe and start working on all the actual projects we want to work here on the city.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mayor Rivera, for joining us this week. So, we wanted to start off by asking that we know this is your first year in office as mayor of Central Falls, Rhode Island, that you are the first Latina to be a mayor of within the state of Rhode Island. So, we wanted to ask just like how's your first year in office been, and what's it like being the first Latina to be a mayor in Rhode Island?
Thank you for the question. It's been a crazy year. Um, Being mayor was not an ambition of mine. This was not something that I had ambition for, that I grew up talking about. For me, this has happened really quick. I was on the council for 2 years, then I became the council president, became the mayor. I think it took me a whole year to really understand what it meant for me to be in this position as a Latina and as the first female here in the city of Central Falls. When I won, everybody made a big deal about it. She's the first female in the city. She's the first Latina in the state. I really didn't take that in because I was coming here hungry to work with the residents of the city. Central Falls was the hardest hit community. I needed to come in here and just work and do what I had to do to try to get my community back healthy. It's now that I realize how important it is for me to be in this position and empower other women, and how long it has taken for women like myself to be in this position, and what some of those challenges are and obstacles are. So, I feel like I have bigger shoes to fill because I'm a female and because I'm a Latina. I feel a lot of pressure on myself of making sure that I do everything right, because I feel like I have a lot of eyes on me right now, being the first. So it comes with a bigger challenge, because I know that there are people watching and there are expectations of, is she going to fail because she's the first Latina or because she's the first woman? So it's been a challenge, but it's been a great challenge. Last year was a tough year. Coming into office, Central Falls being the hardest hit community, having to figure out, where do I begin? When I sat in the seat last year for the first time in January, I said to myself, now what? After I won, I ran a great campaign, won with 76% of the votes, but nobody really holds you by the hand and tells you what is it that you have to do in this position, right? So I run a campaign talking about all the priorities that I want to focus on. I want to focus on the youth and the elderly and getting on high school, but nobody really tells you what challenges you have to face and how you have to face those challenges. And there were many challenges that I had to face.
Yeah, thank you so much for that answer. And Mayor Rivera, I wanted to ask, like, can you explain more on what is so unique about Central Falls that makes it such a impacted community? And at what point within your career serving as council inspired you to run for this position? And can you speak more on can you tell us a moment where you said, I had to run for mayor and I know that this is what I have to do?
Brian, I can't remember that one time I said I'm running for mayor. This, for me, has just happened really quick because of the work that I had been doing with the community. I had worked at the Department of Human Services, so I had worked with a lot of the residents here in the city who already knew me. When I was on the council those first 2 years, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I had people ask me to run for office. I held myself back because I didn't know if this was something I wanted to do. I didn't even know how to run a campaign. I didn't even know what it consisted of being on the council, but I decided to run. And what I did those first 2 years was just really focus and understand what it meant to be on the council. So I just listened and learned. I took it all in. I learned how to run a budget. Then the next 2 years, I became the city council president. That was a unanimous decision by the council, which was a huge surprise to me, to become the council president, coming from someone who had no intention of being an elected official. But that said a lot, right? And my second term, I'm becoming the city council president. That says a lot about the work I had been doing with the residents of the city, and also the relationships that I had established with the council and the mayor of the city to be able to trust me and be the council president. Those last 2 years on the city council, I did a lot of like grassroots work in the community while I was also running a campaign. I feel like I wasn't running a campaign, the people were running a campaign for me with the things that I were doing in the community. I can remember that one time I said, I'm going to run for mayor. It happened because of the work that I had been doing here. You know, the pandemic started before I became mayor. I was hands-on. I raised money for the undocumented community, which I was really concerned about because they were losing their jobs. They didn't have daycare. You know, they didn't have money to purchase food. We had families of 8 to 10 members or even more in one household being impacted by COVID. We were asking them to do something they couldn't do, which was isolate, because we have so many people living in one apartment. Because of the work I had done, this is why I am here now. And Central Falls is a unique city because of the people who live in the city. You know, with the new census, I can guarantee you that the Latino population is over 70%, which is great. Most of our businesses are owned by Latinos that come from different countries. We have great restaurants. We have great people in Central Falls. It's just a beautiful city. Everybody's kind. People come together when there is a problem. When I started handing out food throughout the pandemic, the amount of people that would come just to help and support was amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Mayor Rivera. And speaking on the pandemic, can you explain more on the impact of the pandemic on the town of Central Falls? And you mentioned that you ran your campaign after the pandemic started. So can you speak more on how has the pandemic changed life for the people of Central Falls, especially the undocumented community and people of marginalized groups?
Yes, thank you. So Central Falls was the hardest hit community at one point per capita in the nation. We had the highest rate of positive cases. We had the highest rate of hospitalization cases. I knew that I had to come in here and I had to just work, right? Just be out there. Being at City Hall, on this chair was not the solution to try to figure out what are the issues that I have to address during this pandemic. So when I came into office, before I was even sworn in, I started hosting vaccine clinics because I knew that there was such a huge need in the city. I knew that there was going to be a lot of hesitancy because of the amount of undocumented that we have in the city and because they don't trust the system. But I was someone that they trusted. So I knew that I had to take it upon myself to start hosting these vaccine clinics. We hosted vaccine clinics for months. We're still hosting vaccine clinics. So I would work Monday through Friday, focused on everything that I had to do in the city. And on the weekends, we would run these vaccine clinics from 8 a.m., sometimes till 8 p.m., vaccinating at a time over 1,000 people. We went door to door. I hired 20 ambassadors to go door to door. I did it myself, just getting the residents out of their home, talking to them about the importance of getting vaccinated, talking to them about the importance of isolation. One of the first things I did when I came into office was start the Office of Constituent Services and Health. The city had an Office of Health, but we didn't have an Office of Constituent Services. And with everything that was happening, I knew that that office was going to be an important office for City Hall and for the residents of this community, for them to be able to have a space that they could contact or come and just for us to connect them with that resource that they did not have at the time. You know, we live in a community where many people don't speak English. We live in a community where many residents, business owners don't know how to use a computer. So for me, it was really important to have that space where they can come and feel comfortable and for us to be able to help them.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Mayor Rivera. And speaking off of the undocumented community, with some of the other stories that I've done with in New Hampshire and in Rhode Island, the undocumented community has been one of the most attached communities, especially by the past presidential administration. Can you explain more on how, like, what work have you done and what work has the Council of Central Falls, Rhode Island have done in order to make a safe haven, but also create more assistance for the undocumented community as they tend to be a very oppressed and a very underrepresented, underserved community within the nation.
The good thing here in Central Falls is that we're a team, right? From the mayor's office to the council, we're a team and we protect them. We don't allow anything to come into Central Falls that's going to try to hurt them in any way, shape, or form. I have a great relationship with the police department. The colonel that I brought in understands the amount of undocumented we have in the city and how they should not be a target for anything. I have established relationships here with the undocumented community for them to trust me so they feel comfortable coming here. They feel comfortable going to the police department. I could have, these vaccine clinics, I could have had them hosted by the National Guard. I could have had them hosted by the state coming in here with the National Guard, but I wanted to make sure that they felt safe. There's a lot of things that I'm advocating for right now for the undocumented community. One of them is Medicaid for the undocumented children. I worked at the Department of Human Services, and they had Medicaid at one point, and a few years back they cut that off. So it's very hard for me to see these young kids not having coverage, or not, the parents holding back from having to take them to get their annual because they don't have coverage and the parents can't afford it. That's one of the things I'm advocating for. And the other thing is undocumented license for the undocumented community. I I think it's so important for them to be able to have licenses to drive in the city. It's a benefit to them, but it's also a huge benefit to the state of Rhode Island. I can share a personal story. I was rear-ended by somebody who was undocumented. I didn't know what to do. I had a rental. I have a rental. So what do I do? Do I fix the car myself? Do I pay this expense? Do I say it was a hit and run? Do I call the police? And I had a fear of calling the police because I didn't want to hurt this person, which is
Yeah,
why
that's
I advocate so much for licenses for undocumented.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mayor Rivera, for telling that story. And with that being said, can you explain more on like what specific obstacles do you think exist within the state of Rhode Island that prevent marginalized groups such as the LGBTQ community, the undocumented community, and other marginalized groups from achieving their full potential and from living a life that is not full of fear all the time, despite all of the polarization and the fear that is put within news? What obstacles do you think exist that prevent these groups from achieving their full potential from being involved within the state of Rhode Island?
I think there are many obstacles, right? As leaders of the communities, I have to take it upon myself to educate others about why it's important and why we should advocate for them. Like, they're humans just like us. They come here to work, they pay taxes. The LGBTQ community is one of the best communities that I've worked with. They are human. Um, I think we have to educate those that don't want to support them and try to bring them in to support them. We have a lot of work to do. Lots of work to do, right? I'm not undocumented. I am not gay. I face challenges. So I can, you and I both know that their challenges are a lot more than myself as a woman and yourself as a Latino, that we have to come together and support them. I see many obstacles. I see obstacles even getting an apartment. I see obstacles in them being able to work in a place where they feel comfortable, where they know that they're not going to be targeted. So there are many obstacles. One of the things, we could talk for hours. There's so many things I want to talk to you about. One of the obstacles, housing. The reason why Central Falls was the hardest hit community is because I have a lot of families, 2 and 3 families living in one apartment, undocumented, because they can't afford to live in one apartment, or because of fear, because they just want to live all together. That's why Central Falls was the hardest hit community, because of the lack of housing stock in the city and because of the trust issue of these families wanting to live together and not trusting the system, which is why I am going to continue working for the undocumented community and advocate for us to continue supporting them and for others to also support them.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Mayor Rivera. And I want to ask two questions. One, what is your biggest hope to accomplish as mayor of Central Falls? And what programs and resources do you think our audience should know in order to be more involved in the issues of Central Falls and the state of Rhode Island?
Thank you. So I have 3 huge projects that I'm working on that I want to accomplish while my term here. One is a new high school, which we've been approved for the new high school, but it's not just the building. I know it's huge that we're getting a new high school, a new building, but we also have to talk about what are we going to do about the education part. I want to make sure our students succeed, that we help them succeed. The other one is housing. I've been advocating for housing. I had a housing summit. I have a housing report, just having those conversations with the different leaders at the state level and trying to figure out how they can support the city. We have already identified a few properties that we're going to start converting into housing. And the third one is a community wellness center. And this is one that I would love for anybody who's listening to reach out if you can support. Central Falls hasn't had a community center for over 10 years. With this pandemic, the issues have just arisen, right? Mental health has gone up. The lead rate has gone up. Substance abuse, domestic violence is our number one phone call in the police department. So with this community/wellness center, what I'm trying to accomplish is have some space for the community to be able to have, for us to have after school programming, to have STEM programming, a space where residents can feel comfortable, but also have those services that our residents need. Here in Central Falls, it's like a one-stop shop. They can come, speak to the advocates. I want to work with different nonprofits so that they can staff their staff here, their advocates here, their substance abuse worker here in Central Falls. Instead of duplicating efforts, my job is to work with these nonprofits and try to staff them here in Central Falls to serve the residents here.
Thank you for talking with us, Mayor Rivera, and for being our guest on RILN Opinion Plus this week.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity.
And join us next time for another episode. For more information about our discussion today, check out our web store on RILatinonews.com. Follow us on Twitter at RILatinonews. I'm Brian Zapata with RILN Opinion Plus, and we'll see you next time.